I love a good story. And friends, in recent years, a lot of stories have let me down. Game of Thrones might be the most disappointed I have ever been in a television finale. Movies?
Stand together, die together.
I think JJ should stand trial for Rise of Skywalker.
What is this?
And yeah, it's an MMO that many play without ever giving the narrative a second thought. But I was very invested in World of Warcraft's story. But then Shadowlands happened. It felt like no matter what fictional world I wanted to get lost in, it was just going to lose it when it mattered the most. In the end. But a good friend of mine kept pushing for me to try a different MMO. He'd go on and on about how, while he was still in the early stages of the experience, its narrative was getting its hooks in him. He was really starting to care about its menagerie of characters. And best of all, since it was an MMO, it was a story we could experience through co-op. That game was Final Fantasy XIV. Last week, my friend and I, we concluded the main story of Final Fantasy XIV. We completed its MSQ, spanning its main relaunched release, A Realm Reborn, 4 massive expansions, hundreds of hours, and many, many podcasts, where we were grilled by another streamer we both looked up to. This absolute champion would sit there with the world's greatest poker face and listen to us pop off with hilariously wrong theories.
Does Xenos eat the moon? Because he stabs it real good.
I think Jesse's reaction is debunking your theory, your moon theory.
I didn't want to spoil anything, but I'm gonna. The twist ending of Endwalker is that 1, the moon is a 3D projection, and 2, Xenos eats it.
Yep.
He swallows it whole.
Yep.
And it's, yeah, that's why people love it so much.
Yep, but they hate
They're
Xenos.
like, this is the best thing I've ever played.
Well, beaten Final Fantasy XIV. We stand at the precipice of its endgame patches and the start of a new adventure with the forthcoming Dawn Trail. But now, we can finally give our friend Jesse the gift of being able to talk with us openly about Final Fantasy XIV's main story arc, with as many spoilers as he wants to dig into. So please, join us. My friends Kyle Ferguson, Jesse Cox, and me, Garrett Weinzierl, for this first episode of Main Story Q&A, or as we're calling it, MSQ&A, where we are going to revisit the story of Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker and what it was like for 2 friends to actually beat an MMO together. Somehow those crazy bastards did it. That's my first takeaway is like, all right, I heard the hype. Everyone told me it's a satisfying ending, but they actually did it. I've been playing MMOs for more than half my life. It's an MMO with an ending, and it makes sense, and it's satisfying, and that's like not even getting into the quality of the narrative, which I think you could make a really strong argument for being better than a lot of other narratives transcending genre. Doesn't matter about game, RPG, book, TV, movie. It's just a good ass story.
It was a joy to watch you go through it. And I feel like I might have done it on stream. I think I streamed either the day before or maybe the day before that. And people were asking if I was going to show up for yesterday's stream. And I was like,
also, look who I found.
You cheer for Jesse.
Of course I am. But I was having a conversation with people in my chat where I was saying, I'm gonna let you know something. I think those 2 boys are gonna try and tough it out because they're in the room together, and they're gonna try their hardest not to cry, because 2 boys in that room alone, they're gonna be like, I'm tough, I'm a tough man, and I ain't gonna cry none. And I was waiting, and oh, it was so good. I was like, and the fact that it was 1 And then like 20 minutes later, the other. I was like, this is all I can ask for. And it was good because it's exactly the same thing that got me, where while the game itself, although later on there was a moment that got me that is the most ridiculous thing to cry about, but I was bawling my eyes out for a goofy reason. But it was the community. It's the idea of the time you're taking to play the game, the years you've spent, what it's done to you. Like for me, I started over COVID. So like I experienced the whole like, this is all I've got going on at the moment vibe. And so to get to the end with a bunch of people there to cheer you on is like, it's a feeling. And then because the game itself is just like, let's take an introspective look at your life and also the idea of existential dread and just pile it all on for a little bit. Enjoy. It makes you feel something. And if you don't feel something, I question literally everything about you as a person. I'm like, clearly it is designed to make you reflect upon your own existence in life. And to not feel emotion is, it might not be because a character says something or whatever. Literally, music played.
Oh. Excuse me for a moment while I just up my own speakers.
Oh, Garrett, I watched it wash over and just like, and you're like, I'm thinking about some stuff that in my life, and I'm like, here we go, it's happening, baby.
I couldn't hold it together. Yeah. It was also I really enjoyed having a really natural music moment, because if you play this game publicly, pre-hype for music happens a lot, and it can impact the experience in a less than hype-filled way. Because like, why do you like this so much? But like, no one said shit to me about the music of the final zone. And so when you have that moment, like, I really enjoyed it. I'm like, oh, damn, this brings the feels. Whereas if I had a ton of people beating down the door before that in the comments being like, I can't wait till you get to the Philly song part, like, I probably wouldn't have had the same experience. But yeah, I'm sure I know you had a breakdown. I can't even remember when it was. I remember being surprised. It was like an unvoiced cutscene, and you were just trying to read some damn dialogue, I think from Alizé.
Oh yeah, the Alizé lines there.
And you couldn't get through it. You couldn't freaking get through it. And I was just sitting here, and at first I thought you were doing a bit, and I look over and I'm like, I will not make a joke now because this is sincere.
Yeah, it was introspective. It was intense. I can only imagine the experience Jesse describes in the time period. Also by yourself. Like I'm gonna admit something. I'm not too proud of. All right, y'all.
Oh,
Mass Effect 2. I was single at the time. And I beat Mass Effect 2. I dated Tally. And I would press that button, summon Tally to my room, and I would just sit there and watch us cuddle, and I would just cry. And I was like, holy shit, what an adventure, Mass Effect 2. Look at Shepard. I want to cuddle like that, damn it. And all these little hits along the way, like you and I are in a room together, and they can bounce off you a little bit. And sometimes it just doesn't even match what you personally would find sad. Like for me, Graha's sacrifice was such a orchestration of writing as Graha figured out the text adventure that was going on around him and entered the perfect, Sherlock Holmes style script into it and countered the puzzle he was facing. And it was like, you do it. You are the #1 super fan adventurer. Hell yeah, of course. And Medion shows up and she's just like, get out of here. I'm not even gonna have a speech. Just get him out of here. I'm so sick of this man. Like that wasn't sad to me. But seeing Alizé, do not only invoking her grandpa, but the just the what if this is all a dream in addition to like the weakness of the flesh we had just moments before, which I find hilarious because I love Warhammer lore. I love big mechanical voices being like, so this is my, and just going nuts on that idea. It really filled out Omega in a real way for me.
Oh yeah. That's probably the happiest I've ever been to eat crow. Was just like getting up to that second to last part of Ultima Thule and being like, holy shit. It's Omega, because the whole time I've just been like, I love the raids. Don't get me wrong, but when folks like kept bringing up the story, I'm like, the story doesn't really tie into the main story. You know, almost every raid story kind of feels like its own thing. Like it makes sense to happen within the world, but doesn't seem all that consequential to the main story arc, the main thrust of Final Fantasy XIV. And I think that's still true for some of the raids. Looking at you, Evilise, but that was, I've never been happier because I'm like, oh shit, I'm so glad that we made time along the way. And even though the game doesn't like point you at it and tell you, go do these raids before you move on to the next expansion. That's what we did anyway, because it just seemed kind of fun. And coming from World of Warcraft, it also kind of seemed like a waste. It's like, here's a game that actually really well preserved all of its raid and trial content along the way, and through filters like min-eye level, it can still be a challenge. So yeah, we just kind of started doing it because it seemed fun to us, and then when we did it, it was fun. And then here at the end, I feel like it is a massive payoff if you kind of do all of the quote-unquote non-required content along the way, and also kind of in order where they should fall in the order of the events of the story.
I was super interested to see your reactions to. You've seen the Dawn Trail trailer, so I was like, when people were in it at the moment, we didn't know what was going to happen to those characters, and
maybe for the first two, the game spells it out heading into the third one, and even the first one, Thancred. It's full spoilers, so let's just get into it. Sure. Thancred is the first one to go. Meteon herself is like, oh, he's still there.
Our friend Thancred. Where is he?
Oh, yes. He is here and there, and everywhere within this space. He would tell you himself if he had form to form words.
I was like, there it is.
But you know, it is in the back of your mind that we saw that trailer. Granted, you brought up many times, Garrett, the Shadowbringers switcheroos and all the weird, the gremlins and just the bizarre stuff that'll happen.
Yeah, the Shadowbringers, because I'm a little prickly about this. There's been so many people in the comments that are just like, this is why you shouldn't have went to FanFest. And I'm like, they're gonna make more game. Like, it's not a spoiler to know that they're gonna make more game. Also, I would say for me personally, it made this section a bigger fucking surprise. Because I'm like, oh yeah, they're not gonna do shit with the science. Like, and so when they're popping up, I'm like, oh shit, they're doing like the end game thing, or Infinity War thing, which I actually hate that trope almost always, like the fake death. I particularly hate it in Infinity War. I think it's very egregious because it's a cliffhanger. And I'm like, oh, F you. You're not going to kill off all these characters. I don't believe you for 1 second.
I mean, it is the comic way they did it. You know, like, that's the closest they've ever come to the comics. Like, going into that, I was like, if Thanos doesn't kill half the universe, this is some BS. I wasn't a comic book fan through my childhood for this not to happen. So, like, I was excited. But you're right. It's comics. They're not going to just kill the characters. But I was like, they have to pull that trigger. They have to. And so when they did, I was like, okay, that's good. That's good. Before we move on, I do want to say this to jump into the ashamed feelings. There's video evidence, so I can't hide it. But at the end of this game, the two things that got me the most. One, I get emotional over dumb stuff, apparently. The thing that got me was they bring back all the scions and everything's like, everyone's happy. And I was like, wow, this is a great moment. Emmett literally being like, do you guys want to hear my wacky ideas for the next few years of expansions? I cried.
Tell me, have you been to the ruins beneath the waters of the Bounty? Or the treasure islands beyond the frozen waters of Blind Frost in Offerd's north? The fabled golden cities of the New World. The sacred sites of the forgotten people of the South Sea Isles. What about Mericidia, the southern continent? Do you know aught of its present state of affairs? I thought not.
And I was like, I don't know why I'm crying, but this man giving me what I want, because in my mind, I'm like, all I want is for them to do this. And like, I want to go here and I want to see this. I was just like, why are they doing this to me? This is all I wanted. That and riding a dragon got me, because from moment one, I was like, all I want to do is ride a dragon at the end of this game. I want to be like Estinian and just ride a dragon. And then when it got to happen, I was like, guys, I don't know what's going on right now. It was so goofy. Apparently that's what got me. That made me feel something, and I don't know why, because it was like tears of joy is the best way to describe it. I wasn't like, I'm feeling things about my life. I was just like, these sons of bitches did it. They did it. Yeah, that's where I was.
That Emmett scene is just like advertisements flashing behind him.
Yeah.
I had to stifle like the best laugh, because I'm like, this would be he should just hold up an ad for like pre-purchase Dawn Trail now. Like it hit me with like the best kind of humor.
And not to dive into that conversation, but same thing happened to me in the Xeno scene, where he's basically like, don't you like good games, gamer? Did you have a good mission, gamer? You want to play some good games? I got some good games to play.
Damn, Xenos, you're right. I do
like good games. You're right, Xenos.
I love good games.
I think that is such a smart, like, I will say that after it ended, I made a video, and I didn't want to talk to you guys about it because it's spoilery as crap, but now I can. That was me just going through this expansion's ending and comparing it to what I had just come from over in the world of Shadowlands.
Oh, so you're the reason everyone compares Endwalker to Shadowlands.
No comment. So what? Basically, whoever made that thing, there's something that I really appreciate about this. From most of the expansion is this story they're trying to tell, right? But the last bit that you guys just did is some like perfect meta narrative on just playing a video game, being involved in the moment, and also delivering on not just fan service, but payoff in a really great way, which is, I mean, Xenos is you. Like, not your character, but you, a video game player. And it's made so incredibly clear, because the entire time when Vinaz's like, yo, was this worth the time? Was this worth doing this? But Xenos is the one who asks you at the end, like, hey, was any of this worth it? Like, and he's like, come on, gamer. Come on, you know you want to fight me. And the best answer is like, hell yeah, I do, dude. Like, of course that's the way to go. And so you have that, but then you also have...
You will never reach it. Will never reach the deliverance you seek.
The final boss of like a world-ending, like universe-ending calamity doesn't have her own theme. It is every boss's theme before that moment. And then when it does the like prayer scene, it is literally your own character's theme. Final boss of their last expansion is about the trials you went through rather than her. And I'm like, that is so good. That's so absolutely perfect for a 10-year story. It doesn't matter who the final boss was. It never mattered. It's about your character. And I'm like, yes. Oh my God, World of Warcraft. Yes. Why are we not doing this? And the idea that everyone showed up, I was like, why? You're in Shadowlands. every dead character who's ever existed should have popped in to punch the jailer in the face. Just been like, you dumb bee, just end, like, you can't end reality. That's like where we're from, dude. There's so much they should have done with that. And instead they try to build up a whole thing. And they were like, oh yeah, no, there's a hierarchy and factions in the afterlife. Who cares? Who cares? It should have been every character that we ever met was like, hey, you're in the afterlife. Let's go do a thing. Yeah. It's so much better, and they just didn't.
That wants to send me off on like 7 different thoughts just about the WoW thing. Because Kyle, late last year we played a lot of classic. We played hardcore until you died and I left you for dead, and we played quite a bit of the first part of Season of Discovery, and we had a very good time. And it reminded me of the old days of WoW and how different their storytelling was back in vanilla and even up through BC. And I would even say a little bit of Wrath of the Lich King. Wrath of the Lich King is where it started to turn for me, but it used to be like, it was an overarching story. There were vignettes all over the place. Depending on what zone you were in, there were stories, and if some of them were like long and overarching and you could kind of follow them through to the end, and others were like just like one and done kind of situations. I always liked that. I liked feeling unimportant, if that makes sense, because it made the world for me feel so big and dangerous. It's like, I'm just a soldier. I'm just trying to get by in this world, and the characters that were impacting real change, they were like, much like from Warcraft 3 and everything that came before, they were the named characters with deep lore behind them, and I was fine with that. I was never a huge fan of, after now playing Final Fantasy XIV, what I would describe as the middle ground between vanilla World of Warcraft, where you're kind of just a foot soldier, and Final Fantasy XIV, where it is like very, very much like putting you, the player, and the character that you made in the center of everything. You are integral to the story that's being told. The WoW post Wrath, it is this kind of in between where they're like, champion. You're important, but not important enough to have a name. You're cool, but not cool enough to deal the killing blow to Deathwing. And so I always wanted WoW to like backpedal that and just go back to the way it used to be and just be like, yeah, random foot soldier number 72. You just happen to be an orc hunter. Group up with 39 other nameless disposable meat sacks and go, raid Ulduar. I preferred that because to me it made the world feel big and scary and alive.
I mean, that's all well and good, but that's not Shadowlands specific. Like that's a long ongoing, and that's why I'm not really sure what I want to see your video, Jesse, because I'm not sure what it's about. Like, do you sit around and be like, who's got better teardrops on their face? Yeah.
No. It's the conceit is that if you're gonna tell a story that is one where it is a reflection on everything you've done, right? Because that's what Shadowlands was. It was, you're going to the afterlife, and it is Sylvanas has caused a thing that's made a rift, and it's like you have the potential to include every single character, and the story they chose to tell is insane to me. It makes no sense that's the direction they went with it. When the option to have closure for, like, Endwalker is closure for a lot of stuff. And to have the opportunity to give closure to players on characters for 25 years of story, and they ignored it, is insane to me. Like, they could have, anyone could have been there. They could have had Mankrick's wife, and Mankrick could have anything could have happened. And instead it was like, here is the hierarchical society of a bunch of skeleton people, and how it doesn't make any sense to me. And I feel like that with Endwalker, they said we're going to make a period at the end of a story arc, and it is going to be what it is. And then we're going to start over. We're going to do something new. And WoW's biggest problem is they cannot accept that that's what they have to do. They just will not do it. They continue to drop, like, the fact that the villain, the guy who's going to destroy the universe, goes, I did this because there's something even worse coming. Like, what? You can't keep doing that every expansion. Like, you got to stop. There's got to be one thing. And I think the genius behind Endwalker is them saying, look, we recognize that you started out as an adventurer who killed either bugs or squirrels or rats, depending on where you were, and you were a nobody, and then either Stola or Thancred or, Papa Limo, someone comes along and is like, we need you, adventurer, and then you're caught up in some shit for 10 years, and then, at the end, your frenemy's like, yeah, all right, that was like pretty cool, but you're still that adventurer in there, and like you want to go on adventures and stuff, and you're like, I do. And that's what they're saying the next phase is like, all right, you're an adventurer again. Like you're going to go on an adventure, which is going to be tough. There's gonna be a lot of people who probably hate it. There's a lot of people right now who are like, there's not enough content. I'm so angry. And it's like, well, that's because you blew through it all in the fastest way possible. But like, that's your own thing. And it's tough. This could either be awesome or terrible. Like that's what like they ended a sentence and now they have to start a new one. And that's scary. And WoW will not take that chance. And I think that's what actually hurts the game. And that's like the vibe of the video, if you're curious.
It is something I wanted to watch for a long time. It was your years of WoW versus time in Final Fantasy. That was a big part of my okay, all right, let's see what's going on over here. Back in the day, seeing nothing I understand. To me, like it almost is just in the roots of what's happening in WoW. Like I've got here on screen the Medion fight, the Endsinger. These damn planets could have been anything. They could have been teardrops. They could have been less than that. They could have just been explosions because I end worlds and
energy orbs,
missiles, whatnot. But they're the planets she harvested flying around. And, I'm from the past, I'm from the future. I'm all over. I am all time. So, hey, let's rewind them. Like these mechanics on their base level are not all that different from something you faced before on a circular platform. But the theming of it, and that gets right down to like why Thancred was the first to go, why he didn't fall when everyone couldn't breathe, because he swims real good. Like it's just, there's a deep understanding and knowledge across the writing team of how all these little things come together. So it's almost this like, well, of course they pulled it off. Now, this deep into it, of course you're aware of the financial situations of Lolorito. So yes, you can document easily a character's arc across an expansion. And there's so much of it in this final chapter that if something doesn't resonate with you, like if every shot missed you, I fully understand people out there are like, wow, deaths in video games and shows is the most important thing to me. It's what always gets me. It's what I love the most. And I can't understand anybody who doesn't see otherwise. Absolutely. There are people who are like that. And there are shows made like that all the time. But there's also every other attack angle. Every other little writing ship is trying to chip away at something of you in this moment. And it might be, do you like video games from Xenos in the end?
It's a really well crafted way to wrap up a story that truly, again, this is why I think WoW won't do it. Ending an MMO might be one of the hardest tasks ever. Rather than just shutting down, like the server shut down. I mean, like telling a story, putting a period on it. I can't imagine what a difficult task that is. Because everyone experiences an MMO in a different way and plays for a different reason. And you're like, we're going to end this. Like, that seems crazy to me. But I think they did it in a really well crafted way. And so, I can't help but give them all the props in the world for that.
They made it seem so damn effortless, though. Because, afterward, like my thought this morning, as I've been like over caffeinating myself to keep myself functioning, I've been thinking a lot. I'm like, why don't just so many more narratives do this? Now after seeing it, it's like, oh, it seems so like just it's an arc. It's not the end of everything. You don't need to blow up the world and say that's it. No more stories. Just find a natural conclusion to the story you're trying to tell, and
it's terrifying.
Start a new arc.
At the end of the day, like I've done this minorly. At multiple D&D tables. I have a great arc. I have a great ending. Everyone's pleased as punch. Woo, we loved it. I want to keep playing. I want to keep playing. I want to keep being this character. And you go, oh, crap. And that's not even like livelihood and consumerism on the other side of it. That's just like these Players want to keep playing. I don't have anything. My map is too small. So I guess I'm gonna collide worlds. Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. So like another world like gets transposed in this one and the map expands and like a new island gets discovered. And here we are in the what we might call the WoW problem. Like the players asked for it. And so I'm giving it because I didn't prepare for that. Final Fantasy kind of seems like they prepared for that. There's a lot.
The genius of Final Fantasy is that I'm not sure how much they prepared, but they left so many loose hanging threads that they could pull at one and then just make some stuff up. Like, I would love to know if there were 14 shards in A Realm Reborn. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to know it, like how it all, or I guess 13 plus. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to know what was actually there on day, you know, the day before Heaven's Ward. Like, what were they thinking going into all of that? How did they plan for all this? And I would just imagine that they kind of like guessed their way through, right? And they did a great job.
I have to imagine it was a mix. And I know.
Oh, of course, yeah.
There was an Endwalker panel at FanFest that we literally ran out of the convention center for because they had a spoiler warning before it, which I thought was lovely. Really appreciated that. Whoever was planning panels at FanFest. So I don't know how much they go into it. I have to imagine it's a mix. You know, usually with stories this tight, it's there's a rough outline. You know where you want to end up. But you don't know exactly how you're going to get there. I always quote Breaking Bad because they admitted that we had a rough idea of our beginning, our middle, and our end. But other than that, they would routinely rewatch their own shit to find kernels that they could tie into and pick back up and pay off in later seasons. And it makes it feel so damn effortless, and it makes it feel like there's setup and payoff to nearly everything that ends up happening. But a lot of it, they didn't really know until they got to that point. I don't know. This feels too well executed to have been completely winged it like the Star Wars original trilogy, where they were just like, I don't know, let's just make another one and figure out what happened. Yeah, Luke's got a sister now. It's the only other person.
They love to kiss. It's a family thing. It's a Skywalker thing. Skywalkers love to kiss.
Yeah. You can dodge all of it with just really good character writing, because if your characters are strong enough, they're the MMO we're living and breathing, but they are. And you just move them to different spots and you try them out. You say, can Thancred go on a boat? Yeah. Okay. There's a channel I really like called Nerd of the Rings. And all he does is like sits around with a map of Lord of the Rings, has little pegs, and traces where characters would be at moments. Mm-hmm. And if it's strong enough, you can do that. And you just like, you fail and you fail and you fail and you try to move Thancred and you go, nope, no, he can't teleport. How am I going to pull this off? And you try something else and you try something else. I think the more shock value is how many threads they decided, how big of a hairdo they gave a haircut to. They pulled it all together and said, oh yeah, oh snip that. Like we're done with all this. And there's even threads that came up yesterday, like of Graha turning in like, well, wouldn't it be nice to just like hang out with Omega more? Like, I personally would love. Do you like that? And that is an organic thing you do as a writer or DM. You test your audience. And you say, hey, Graha's into this. And your audience goes, oh, hell no. Graha, you're being silly. And you're like, okay, I'll forget about it. Don't worry. Or you say, okay, all right, people are into it. Let's rock. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too, at least in these types of stories, is I think when it feels this well put together, I think it also just shows a very strong understanding of your characters and the rules of your world. Because like you were saying, Kyle, like, oh, Thancred can't teleport. Like if you're just constantly, if you never forget that, you don't portray it in the writing, and then it also limits the direction you're going to go, but also might inspire the direction that you're going to go. If you are telling one of these more kind of like loosely rule-based stories in terms of world building, because also I know you're a big Remedyverse fan, Jesse, and that's pretty abstract. That's David Lynch's hell, which is like the complete opposite end of this, where like you can try and make sense of this, you can try and make rules for this universe, but that's not really the point. It is abstract by design.
Mm-hmm. And the best thing about what you are talking about is also, I think, the one thing that may keep people from outside Final Fantasy XIV jumping on board. Endwalker is great. It tells a great story. But if I had to critique it gameplay wise, just watching the two of you last night, there are large swaths where not a fight was to be had. It was move to location, do a cutscene, move to location, do a cutscene. And that's cool for a story, especially if you're trying to tell one that's like, we gotta end a 10-year story. I get it. But I can understand how people be like, I didn't do a damn thing in this expansion. I just ran around and talked to people.
As someone who didn't grow up playing Final Fantasy, I got 10 with my PS2 for Christmas one year. That's like it. And I still have to this day have never beaten Final Fantasy X. And then Kingdom Hearts. I love Kingdom Hearts. Don't ask me why. Not being a fan of Final Fantasy. I love Kingdom Hearts. Big Disney guy. But I don't know where you got on. This is a deep cut for me. This is a personal cut for me. I don't know where you two got on board with games commentary even being a thing. But I was a kid. Parents decided we're moving to the middle of nowhere. Only TV we can get a satellite. We started getting this weird channel called G4. And
I think I've heard of it.
I was like, oh shit, there's video game review shows, and I just started watching X-Play, and I would watch it every damn day. And the running gag anytime Final Fantasy was up was, it's a beautiful movie. You sometimes get to press buttons playing, and that was like always the gag with that. And so that kind of like, even though I already had played 10, I was kind of aware of that gag. I was like, oh, that's funny, as like a overarching sense of humor about the series. But it is kind of the reputation of the series, whether it's as true or not these days, especially since Final Fantasy has really changed from the days of turn-based. But
it was a taunt in 2021. Like people were like, "Oh, we're going to be ending the story. It might be worth playing." And I go, "Wow, you're actually going to end something? Maybe I'll check it out." No, you couldn't handle it. No, you played that WoW. There's no way you could handle not playing this often.
Yeah, and that's, I get into that with the World of Warcraft comparisons constantly because there's a lot of, because I still really enjoy World of Warcraft, and I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now this passionate to even have this kind of conversation about this kind of game if it wasn't for my experience with that, and before that it was Guild Wars 1. I love these kinds of games, and the Old Republic aside, every other game I've played up to this point like this, it's been gameplay first. That's the main reason I'm showing up. I'm there for this massive social co-op gameplay experience. I want to kill big bads with my friends. Final Fantasy XIV lets you do that. We've said before when we've talked that, at least I know I have, I don't think enough people promote the game in that way. I think you should be telling your World of Warcraft rating friends that this game has some truly killer boss fights. Also, what if it was also easier to fit into your schedule? Because the really good ones, it's one boss at a time. I find that interesting because I'm like, it's not a bad thing. It's just, what are you looking for? What experience are you looking for? There's not a right way to do it. Like, just because the story isn't important for World of Warcraft, even though they're trying to translate that with what they're advertising for the coming 3 expansions.
See.
Well, right, exactly. I'm gonna. We had our round table last year, and I think we ended on prove it. Please prove it.
I loved your take during that, Jesse. Just like the fog clearing the next day and being like, "Whoa."
got me again.
I was enthralled. I was completely mind controlled for a moment. I'm sorry, everybody. I need to wind back. Yeah. So I was. It's so easy when I say anything critical of World of Warcraft for it to be taken like, yeah, get on the hater train. I'm like, no, I'm not. I know it's a different experience, and it's okay that it's a different experience.
I hope it's awesome. Like, that's not me hating. I really want it to be. I would love to see them end a story well. Like, that's not,
Yeah, they did. It was called Wrath of the Lich King. That was the most I've ever, up until now, the most I ever felt like I built an MMO or beat an MMO. I took the longest break because I was happy from World of Warcraft after that moment, as opposed to the long breaks that followed because I was not having a good time.
I think there's like a difference though in community between the Final Fantasy and, I want to say, almost every other MMO, but I know it's not every single one. But there's, in 14, community kind of has a vibe of, we hang out in an FC because we want to hang out in an FC together. And a lot of other MMOs, it's like, some band of brothers. We've all been through hell. We threw ourselves at a wall for 6 weeks. Like, bro, I got scars because I got a divorce because of that, dude. Like, there's something about that bonds people. I don't know if it's in the healthiest way, but in 14, people are just like, hey, I dressed up like a weird cat today. Like, oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, you want to come see it at my FC house? Like, yeah, okay. And you go there and you spend like 20 minutes and then you log off. And it's a different vibe completely. And there's no trauma bonding happening unless you're doing, uwu, or you're doing some of the hard things. But even then, you're just like, you know what? Good job this week, guys. Let's try again next month. Like, it is an entirely different vibe. It's crazy.
I like both of these, but World of Warcraft has a bit of a dive bar vibe, and Final Fantasy XIV kind of has your like local fandom convention vibe. Mm-hmm. And I like both at times.
There's nothing wrong with either of them, but it's such a different experience overall, right? Because sometimes having that dude who's like, we've been through hell together, brother, like that's a lifelong friend. And so it's a different experience, but it's one that is culture shocking to so many people. If you go from WoW to 14, you're just like, some guy, I was in my first dungeon, and some guy stopped and asked if I needed him to slow down pools, and I didn't know what to do. I'm like, oh, sweet child.
Oh my word. Yeah, I had that a couple times, and then I started tanking immediately. I found the wall-to-wall pullers. I'm like, you do exist here, but. There's definitely more natural, positive experiences in my playthrough of Final Fantasy XIV. And to bring it back to my breakdown moment, that's kind of what got me, was that meta feeling of, like you said, a community, which I think is really easy to read into those themes in the end of Endwalker. Just thinking about the friends you made along the way. And it got in my head, and you and Joe Cat showed up, and it just crit. I was just like, and I'm wrecked. I've been making crap a long time, and it used to be a rat race for me, and I almost quit. And now I've met some really rad people that I talk to because they're actually fun to talk to, and not because I'm just trying to climb a ladder. And it sent me. It's like you said, it's gonna hit everybody so different. There's so many little minds, and I think depending on your experience, you're gonna blow up. And at the same time, I think if you're the type of person, like if you come to this like you're just like a shonen anime fan, and you just want to see like badass shit happen, I think you're gonna have a good time.
Time out real quick. Time out. There was a moment where I think, Kyle, you were trying to explain your shirt.
Because I know exactly what's happening tonight.
Oh my god.
See, I've already pre-watched Endwalker. And I know everything that's happening tonight, so we're all set.
And you were like, yeah, so in Sailor Moon, there's this, when they're on the moon and they're doing this thing and like all the other characters die, and I was like, come on. This man straight up just predicting that, like, you're like, and then at the end they'll come back with like laser beams. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And then it made me realize, I was like, did they just copy the end of Sailor Moon? I was like, wait a minute. Has this always been Sailor Moon? You got me. I was laughing so hard. I was like, I can't believe it.
And it works. And it worked just like the Punch Out. It worked in Gurren Lagann. It worked in John Wick. There is a breakdown where a battle can only be concluded. I mean, you punch that man to death. He's dead. I know
Kill the guy.
I've been warned that there's some like absolute minefield Reddit conversation out there somewhere about that scene and about what you picked. But no matter which option you chose and who you think is a monster and not, you killed that man with your bare freaking hands. Like, if you thought he was your frenemy, your best friend, a complete monster, doesn't matter. Your knuckles are red at the end of that fight. And
it's what I've always wanted Dragon Ball Z to do. I'm like, I just want Vegeta or Goku to kill the other person at some point.
It's just imagine as a Lalafell. It's even better.
I'm sure.
It's even so much better.
It's got to be the goofiest.
I want to see it. I want to see it. And I have a lot of questions.
I don't think I do. I think that will actually ruin Endwalker for me.
No,
It's like watching a baby uppercut at a full adult, and they go, "Yo!" and you're like, "I said I'd punch someone in the face." Waiting all expansion for this. I went up under those arms. I went, "Yoop, pop." That is everything I wanted. I've never seen anything like this before, ever, in any media, ever.
Proportional strength. It's perfectly fine. You run just as fast. You fight just as hard. Of course, you're gonna uppercut. I mean, that scene, sitting in the chair on the zoom in on the evil face. I want to see that. I want to see the Aussie bend over. I need to see that in Lalafell.
Oh, back in Stormblood. That's the number one scene I want to see as Lalafell. Is just how much does Aussie have to just like destroy his posture
completely
to evil face you.
But speaking of your playthrough, Jesse, I do have several questions because you did it in a shorter amount of time, in the time period when it was new. What did you think of the red herrings, the absolute flex of this could be 10 expansions and we don't give a crap? Like, each step, you had the flower, you have the towers, all those could have been a complete storyline.
I actually felt that way as it was happening, where there were moments where I was like, I feel like they're trying to end this because they're like, we're trying to end it. You know, there's moments where I thought, oh, this whole thing feels like it could have been an expansion. Even the idea of there's like a cutoff where it's as you do Garlemald. In my mind, I was like, there's a middle of the map that is still clouds. There could have been the Garlean expansion that was just all that middle map that could have dealt with the towers, right? Or the idea of Xenos destroying his own people. Like, that could have been its own thing. There are so many things they could have done there, but I was like, I guess we're going through this. It wasn't until later that I realized how many actual hours this expansion is. It might be the longest story or expansion that they've done by a factor of many. It really feels like it takes a long time to get through the story. And so I was like, okay, I guess we're really doing this. And then when they hit you with time travel, going back in time, I was like, what the hell are we doing? Why are we doing this? But it all somehow paid off in a really great way. Again, I think the way they, wrapped up the package or put the bow on was so impressive to me. And all those wacky things we did along the way somehow fit. It was crazy. I think the real takeaway for me at the end when I was done, having gone through it all, was that the wacky adventures your character goes on was not the point. The point was to reinforce the moments in between. So you had like the sack lunch moment, or if you're like me, Estinian jumped out of a window for you, or like those little things they did were, I think, the actual supposed to be what this story was about in the end. It's about the moments you shared with these characters that were just being people living in a world, and you were fighting for that. And all the other stuff that was going on was like, yeah, I mean, this is going to get you to the end, but the real thing is all, it's the meme of like, the Endwalker were the friends we made along the way, like that vibe. And I think, I think that's the point of the game.
Everything was like a character study. Like they humanized, but by the end of it, it's like every character's humanized, even ones that you originally met as full-fledged villains.
Mm-hmm.
Your Emmett Selk, and new villains like Fandanal Hermes situation. Like they all get humanized. Whether or not it lands for you and you think they're sympathetic, that's on you. But the game is trying to make them seem sympathetic. Maybe even Xenos, even though I don't think the game wants you to sympathize with him, fully explains his motivation.
Would you be happier had I a good reason?
And lays it out. And so just all of this, it's every character gets one, if not multiple, focused character studies throughout Endwalker.
even the Scions, who you feel like, oh, I know these characters pretty well right now in the game. I feel like doesn't need to focus on them, and for the most part it doesn't. But then you get that final scene with Heidel and Vada, who just one by one, I call it what you had a heart the whole time, Tin Man times 7, just spells out all of their reasons to live, and then that is like this setup, and it gets paid off at the very end when Medion is like, I never considered that there was no one answer. And you're just like, what a bow. What a beautiful narrative bow on this whole thing.
There's a message in the game that I think they have been trying to tell from the very beginning of, like, A Realm Reborn, the concept of what a hero is. And I think they constantly, especially Shadowbringers, they were like, it isn't the fact that you go around and like murder deities all the time. It's like what you do inspires others, and you make others rise to greatness around you. And I mean, there's literally at the end of 5.3, a Graha like paragraph where he's talking to you, where he's like, everything you've done, the road that you're walking, all the lives you've changed, like that's the important thing. And I love the idea that in the end, the way that you interact with Xenos as a character, you're like, bro, I know you want to fight me, but the world's ending, my man, and I just don't have time for you. What he sees in your character through Endwalker is he shows up at the end. He's like, bro, I'm going to say the most romantic line in the world, that I rode the light of like 1,000 stars or whatever to get here to have a moment with you.
I rode the light of the stars to you.
And he's like, you and I, we see each other finally for the first time. He looks at Medion as just like, this is the boss, bro. Like, I thought you were above despair. Let's kill this thing so we can have our fight. Like, that is the most badass Vegeta moment where he's like, come on, are you kidding me? This is the thing that's going to beat you finally. Let's end this, and like, let's do our fight. Like, that is such a perfect ending for that character where he's like, okay, I get it. You got to save the world. Fine, I'll help you save the world. Then we're doing our thing. It's as fundamental as the end of Rocky 3, where it's like, look, we got to beat Clubber Lang, but then you and I, we're going to have our rematch in the ring because that's what frenemies do. It is perfect. And I love what they did with his character. And I think it, again, goes to sum up what the story's about. Like, your character just inspired even the villains to be like, oh God, he's a really good guy. Oh, I hate how good he is. All right, yeah. How can I help? And that's awesome. It's such a trope. I love it. I eat it up.
Yeah, I too, because when you play this game live, you're gonna get everybody's opinions in the comments below. The only way to avoid is don't read the comments below, which sometimes I would recommend. I can't stop myself. And there's such a camp of just like, Xenos should have stayed dead. And I don't entirely disagree, because his ending in Stormblood, it's pretty solid. If that, the way I think about it is, if they had chosen to keep him dead at that point, I think it would have been a pretty satisfying ending. That's a good arc that Xenos goes on in Stormblood. Even though you barely interact with him until like the final moments. He shows up, almost kills your friends, and then he's just chasing you and not catching up to you for the rest of the expansion. But it's pretty solid. But they didn't. He's still around, and I'm with you. I think what they did here is great. And clearly, I may not be a Sailor Moon fan, but I am a big raging Dragon Ball Z fan, and Vegeta is one of my favorite characters of all time. And yeah, it's big Vegeta energy for sure.
It's true because it works.
Well, it's an archetype.
Mm-hmm.
It's an archetype of a character. 14 is littered with recognizable archetypes, much the same way the fights are littered with recognizable mechanics. But it's not a bad thing that they're using familiar pieces.
So now that the two of you have gone through all of it, like, you asked me the question. I'm like, what did you expect? Because you took your time with it. You weren't trying to rush through it, or you weren't as psychotically invested in what was going on as I was, where I was like, I gotta find time to play, dude. I cannot be playing. And so I'm curious how you took it all in over the course of the time that you played, and what stuck out to you as being important, or what you thought wasn't important. Then later you were like, That's what that is? Like, how are you feeling now that you're done?
Very satisfied. I think like towards the end, it was more or less the way I was expecting it to go. Finer details, I didn't have a clue, but knowing that Final Fantasy XIV tends to work towards some big, beautifully, artfully rendered monster, I was like, we're gonna fight Medion or some form of the congealed consciousness that is Media, and it'll be big and operatic, and that'll probably I was like, they'll probably be the final trial. In the back of my head, the wrinkle was Xenos, and I feel dumb that I didn't see it coming. And a lot of it for me, like the things I was wrong on, it's more just like eating crow. Like earlier I said, the whole time I was like, raid stories, they're fun, but they don't really matter. They do. It turns out, yeah, they actually do. Omega tied directly in to the end of Endwalker. And also another thing that I didn't particularly enjoy for most of my time with Final Fantasy XIV were the solo duties. I'm a dungeon and a raid guy in every MMO I've ever played. I love that shit. Playing alone, I'm like, I'll go play a single player game with way better mechanics. I don't need to play alone in your MMO. But they got way better in Endwalker. They were also leveraged for much more interesting and poignant like story beats. And I feel like I should have seen the Xenos one coming. It's like, of course, like his whole point, the whole reason Xenos is even came back from the dead is to have a rematch. And it would, there's no universe where that's a dungeon or a trial fight because he wants a one-on-one. So of course it has to be a solo duty. And for it to actually, for someone who hasn't been all that big on solo duties, for that to be the final piece of gameplay before you close out Endwalker, I was like, all right, you got me. This is exactly how this should have went down. This is a perfect use of the tools at your disposal to make a really satisfying story point land. Trying to think of narrative elements that I was just like totally wrong on.
Doesn't necessarily need to be wrong, but maybe more just how it hit you, taking a longer time. Like what you did is awesome, by the way, where it was just, we're going to play a chunk and then we're going to make a video deep diving our thoughts on that chunk we just played. There is nobody doing that. Just letting you know. Just in the entire fandom, people are beating stuff as fast as they can and then making, here's my 3.5 hour thoughts on a video. You guys are coming in like, all right, we're going to play a chunk and we're just going to talk about what we just played. It is the same thing as and this is why I obsessively watch. And I might have said this before, but years ago when Lost was a thing, there was a podcast that was a bunch of dudes on the island where they were filming. And after every episode, they just went in and they were like, all right, so what's going on? How's this work? And it was so much fun to listen to because they knew just as much as I did. They had no clue, but they were just like, okay, what did we just see here? And also we were on the island. We saw they were filming this. So what does that mean? And it's the same vibe, and it lets people get in, and it's more accessible, especially one, to those who've already played, but two, to those who are just experiencing it from the outside and have no intention of ever playing. Where you sit down and you're just enjoying it and taking your time and not trying to rush or meet arbitrary deadlines or just, you know, the only deadline is like, I'd probably like to get done before Dawn Trail comes out. I'm pretty sure that's the vibe here. But other than that,
Stat and Kyle's got another kid on the way. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's any kind of like, you guys are living a life and doing this. And it seems like it is being done for fun, not because it's like, well, Twitch is my job. So I got to stream 8 hours a day every day because I got like, it's a different vibe altogether. And so that's what I'm curious about is you're experiencing it completely different from any other person who's experiencing this game. It's just as far as I can tell in the community of people who are creating content.
I'm really touched to hear that. I respect the crap out of you, man. Like I followed you for so long. So it's like, it's never stopped being cool that like one day you just like showed up in our live stream chat. We're like, wait, is that actually Jesse Cox or is that an impersonator? Like, oh, that's cool as shit. And we started talking to you and we're like, oh, just Jesse's like super down to earth, really cool guy. It's just rad. I don't know, Kyle, dude, like I don't know how to compare it to how everyone else played it because I didn't play it that way. But I will say I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't think it was a super conscious. At a certain point, it was a conscious decision to keep going and keep doing it this way. But I do think it was a mix of everything. It's a mix of fact Kyle and I have been making random crap together for 14 years. All of it was kind of successful, but never hugely.
I mean, you could say it's even a natural evolution of things like the instance you did for World of Warcraft or what we did for Heroes of the Storm with patches. Here's Morales. Got
a certain degree.
But, you got 2 points of healing in your Morales patch. That now puts each tick at 41 rather than 38, which means this out heals a Dahak auto attack. And what does this mean? Just like Jesse was saying about the Lost Show, it's all about the great spider web of narrative threads. And thinking about it in this way, if Garrett's thinking, oh man, like, why did we do this? I feel very responsible because I'm like, oh, this is what I enjoy. Like, this is how I work. And, we got Sandwich Maker over here reacts to sandwiches being made in movies. Like, this is DM reacts to Final Fantasy story crafting. I love it. I love looking at this story in terms of these pauses and seeing the myriad of options before them. And there came a time right after Elpis where I apologize for already using the sandwich analogy, but I'm going to do it again, Garrett. And I've already told you this, and I'm not sure you liked it, so I'm going to say it again now. But to me, it is Subway. And
Gross.
You walk into Subway, and they got pizzas, and they got sandwiches. And why does this place sell both pizzas and sandwiches? It doesn't make sense. They already had all the ingredients. And if you prefer Taco Bell, you can think of it that way. A burrito is not very different from a taco. That's why I like sandwiches and pizza.
I do, in fact, prefer Taco Bell.
Okay, so you can think of it as Taco Bell. Like, what we have: cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, tortillas. What can we do with this? Can we make a pizza? Well, yeah, it's a flat pizza on a tortilla. Well, that's technically a flauta, but fine. We'll just market it as that. Eventually, there came a point after Elpis where all I could see was the cooking show. And they just had all the little bowls laid out and all the ingredients. And it was just go. Make whatever you want out of this. You can make anything now. You got a little bowl of meat, that's Thancred there. You got your bowl of cheese, it's Oriange over here. Whatever order you choose to put these ingredients in. But getting there, and to that point where I accept you can make anything, is hard. And I'm going to question, like, are the Ascians enthralled? Like, is that a huge plot point that they might be enthralled to Zodiark, and that's why they want to feed him the new life so they can? And eventually, you just kind of reach a point of like, I don't need to make some big, like, scandalous was retcon. They got rid of the enthrallment. The Ascians were actually into it because they're actually. It's like, no, it doesn't matter anymore. Because all the ingredients to pull off a successful story, this plot hole or whatever it may be, the side note, that's something maybe they chose not to explore, convolute their narrative, doesn't matter. It didn't need to be brought up. That was just a knife you used once. You're like, oh, this has raw chicken on it. You put it in the sink. And it was useful then, but we don't need it again. I got a whole thing of knives to cut more chickens without cross-contamination.
I marvel at the way your brain works. You never lost the analogy.
I honestly appreciate it. It is. Let me see if I interpreted this correctly. That all of the prep work was done over the course of X number of expansions. So by the time you hit the end of Elpis, you have many varieties of food at your it's like when you go to one of those places where you get the noodles and stuff and then they cook it for you at the end. And you go around and you put it whatever you want in there. They have all a buffet's worth of noodles and chicken and beef or whatever and veggies. And your interpretation of what is happening in that last bit is just what you put in your bowl. What you take away is what you take away. And then you give it to the guy and they cook up an ending for you. Oh, am I correct? Because now I'm really hungry, guys.
To an extent, actually, what you just described is someone who makes a video complaining about the story of Baldur's Gate 3. And well, you made that. That's your fault that you had that experience and killed those characters and didn't talk to this person. Like, you've misinterpreted what was available to you, and your dish sucks. Your noodle bowl is awful. Maybe you should have ordered off the menu and railroaded it a bit. And here, I think we ordered off the menu. We ordered off the Ishikawa menu, and this is what was given to you. But I do think that can happen in the past. And what you described does happen a lot. Probably, I haven't watched them, but I'm assuming that happens a lot with videos that discuss the narrative Final Fantasy XIV when it's all over. Because you look back and you go, here's what's important to me. And here's all the points that were most important to me. It's like, well, literally so much was said in that last 2 hours. You can kind of make any dish you wanted personally out of that. That's why we all cried at different points during the walk there. Because it's just attacking you from all these angles, and eventually something's going to hit. But that doesn't mean that death sacrifice wasn't important to somebody else and wasn't part of their dish. But I think that's why there's a couple choices here. Like I've got up on screen here.
Such pleasures you seek for their own sake and no other reason. Is this not so, adventurer?
Well, we've been lingering on this choice to talk to Xenos for 2 minutes straight. And those are extremely important, but ultimately you still punch him to death.
It's how you want to deliver that punch. Is it a punch because you're two rivals and this is finally, you're going to give him the thing that he wants? Or is it because like, F you, dude, I'm going to punch you out of existence because I hate you so much, right? There's different versions to how you want to end it. You're right. It's still the punch. In fact, most of Final Fantasy XIV is going to give you the exact same thing. No matter what choice you make, there's still going to be like, a great example is when he shows up a dragon. They give you two choices and both end the same way. There is no difference. You're not going to walk like, I actually would rather prefer in fact, the fact that they didn't have one that was like, oh, thank God you're here, I could use the help, is insane to me. I would have been like, my boy, let's do this. But it's still, no matter what, you jump on a dragon. And I think what it is just like, it's like a lighter version of Baldur's Gate where they're telling a story. How you want to involve yourself in that story is the thing. And in Baldur's Gate, they're telling a story, but your insane changes can either make the story better or worse, depending on what you do. And here they're like, we're not going to give you the option to really screw this up. We don't want that for you. We are trying to give you something. And so, it's how you choose to interpret it. I think it's an apt metaphor, and I'm with you on this. I'm with you.
And it happened before you, and I think that's incredible. But I do feel the question that started this. I tricked my friend a little bit into playing like this. I think I am responsible, perhaps, for making Garrett playing this way.
we kind of accidentally went into it. Like, I think it's a mix of everything. It's obviously a mix of all the stuff we've done together. We had a horribly failed, like 3 people downloaded a podcast that like
2010,
10 years ago. That was basically this for other games, and no one gave a shit. And it was so much work. And we looked at those numbers after 2 months of trying it. We're like, we just kill it dead. This is too much work for not enough return.
Sure.
But we just happened to be trying a YouTube thing when Kyle finally convinced me to play, and it's good job, Kyle. After last night, after a 9-hour stream, and I know, we usually hang for like an hour and we took a food break, but like it was more than 7 hours of like actively trying to go through that game. Like I don't know how I would get through it quick. I want to let the stuff actually land, and I don't think you should necessarily go through as flow as we did, but taking breaks along the way makes a lot of sense to me. I think it'd be, I don't know. It was weird. It was such a mix. It was such a mix of always wanting to do a game book club. And then the deeper we got into it, it was like, well, this is all now just what we've been doing. So then it became self-fulfilling. And when we realized, I'm sure you've had this, Jesse, where you look up when in the earlier days of editing video, I don't know, maybe you're 3 months in, maybe it's 6 months in, might be a year, might be 2 years. It creeps up on everyone at a different point. But at some point you wake up, you like look up and you realize you've been like holding your breath and you're like, holy shit, this is so much work. And I'm realizing the limitations. Like I can't output a video of the quality I want it to be fast enough or with enough regularity. And that's what happened. We looked up probably a year into this. We were just like, holy shit. We can't keep like, what are we going to do? Like there was no universe where we just could go faster unless we stop the videos. That was it. It was we at one point did sit down and have a conversation like, do we just kill the videos? Because some people just want us to keep going. And so it was a mix of having always wanted to do like a video game book club, having always enjoyed longer form content through the podcast that we made, starting a few videos to just dip our toe in by making it about like kind of bite-sized chunks of story, people enjoying that, feeling almost a weird sense of duty. Like we need to make good on our promise now. We've made this many MSQ videos. It would kind of suck if we didn't complete the suite. And then just a garnish of spite because some people in comments are insufferable. And I want to prove to them that I actually got more out of this experience than their gatekeeping asses did.
Well, and to counteract that, like, we got to shout out the mods too, because I still don't know how the hell we played Stormblood during Endwalker release time and thought Xenos was dead for good. That seems impossible to me. Yet, thanks to our mods, we did that. You know, they're in Alamigo. We're like, well, that's over. Granted, you know, because of that also, we sat through Endwalker going, well, there goes Van Daniel. We're done with him forever. A couple times over, too. It happened. But it... go for it.
Even in your most Van Daniel moments, there is an overwhelming sense of positivity in the content you're creating. And I think in a universe where that is not a thing that gets a lot of clicks, it's always about hating on stuff, always gets the most clicks and the most people watching. I think sticking to that and being positive is so important, especially in a community like this, where I think it's one built on a more positive side of gaming. Despite, I'm sure someone's gonna be like, actually, I was on a server once, and someone told me to shut up, and I was very angry. Like, generally, yeah, and that's, I think, very smart on your parts. Even if there's something you don't like, you don't really focus on it too heavily. You talk about the things you do like, or the story elements, or things that are important, or things that they're trying to do and you're trying to figure out. Because as a person who has made content for far too long, every once in a while I'll start to do a thing, realize it's going negative, and I'm like, I gotta scrap this. I don't want to be an angry guy on the internet. I might be a rich angry guy at the end of the day, but like that's a crappy way to be and exist. And so I think what you're creating and taking the time to do so, I love that stuff. And I think obviously to the many people who are in chat with us right now, they love that too. So, you know, keep on keeping on, boys.
That means a lot to hear. It is not without its pitfalls. Like, I know we got to Oriange's house in Shadowbringers, and we ended up taking like 2 weeks to make a video. And I spent that whole 2 weeks being like, explain this poster to me. And I was on like 3 streams in a row. I watched your video, I watched other videos, and I'm like, I am going to memorize this poster lore. And then Emmett did his, you know, like Snap and PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to get this in my head too. And just like, I never felt quizzed by the end of the expansion. I was like,
it wasn't super important.
It was there if you wanted to understand it. And much like Thancred's swimming ability, it's just something that you can go, that's why it works. You know, why did Xeno show up a dragon? Well, because he ate the crystal and they got in the engine, and all the primals did that. It wasn't just a montage for fun because we want to sell primal posters. Unlike Alpha. Alpha is 100% has no purpose but to sell plushies.
Merch.
And I accept that.
Alpha is the R2D2 of freaking Final Fantasy XIV.
And that's okay. That's okay. It's not as forced as like Clash of the Titans and the little owl or anything like that. Like, it has its place, and people already love it.
I can freaking respect. It's been a fun journey. I'm excited to continue it. At the end of the day, it's just like I think we've almost hit a healthy stride. Like, what we're doing is sustainable. I don't see a world we could go faster. Like, I don't. But also, like, I'm not sure we'd feel fulfilled if we did switch it up.
As a person who knows what's coming, don't change. I must hear your theories. Because 6.1 to 6.5 is its own thing.
Huh.
The trial, the raids, the story are its own thing. And I even made a theory video. And I don't make very many theory. I was like, all right, here's my insight. So I want to know, do not change, because I'm going to sit here and be like, yes, what do you think is going to happen? Because it's fine. It's fine. It's whatever. It's good or bad.
The only thing motivating me to want to maybe we do 0.1 and 0.2 in the same week is just I really just keep seeing Rebirth, and I'm like, I never played 7. I kind of want to have a 7 experience right now. That's it. That's the only thing that makes me want to speed
Jesse
up
Cox just finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I just want to take a moment. As a person who has played Final Fantasy VII, the original, and Remake and Rebirth, I sat through all of Rebirth the entire time, constantly asking people, if you've never played Final Fantasy VII, what do you think is happening right now? It is that crazy. And I don't know how anyone has any context for anything happening in that game if you haven't played the original. Because stuff happens and I'm like, what? How would, if you're just average, if you're 13 years old and you want to try Final Fantasy for the first time, this is the first one you get into, it's the same content, and I know you'll appreciate this as a Kingdom Hearts player.
I was about
to say,
playing Kingdom Hearts.
Imagine playing Kingdom Hearts 3 and ignoring all the others and expecting to understand anything that's happening. That's the vibe. And I'm like, yo, how is this possible?
I stopped it too. And every time we bring up my love of Kingdom Hearts on the stream, everyone in chat's like, you could skip 3.
3 is... Even 2 is like, well, sure, you played some of the mobile games, right? And I'm like, there were other games besides the first one, bro.
I remember being in, was it high school when 2 came out, or was I in college? Doesn't matter. I remember being in school and being so confused for the first 4 hours of 2. I'm like, who are these characters? Why are these characters? Where's Sora, Goofy, and Donald? What is happening?
Now flip it and imagine that's the last 5 hours of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Just what is, but what? I don't know.
I kind of like that, though.
Is that a good thing? Did you enjoy it?
Really a bad thing.
I loved it, but it's also because I in the last 5 years replayed 7, the original. Then earlier this year replayed on easy mode just to get through the story remake. Then on stream did Crisis Core. I've never played that before. I've played Dirge of Cerberus, and then I looked up information about the mobile game that's happening. So I was lured up going in. And the only reason why is because I watched the trailer for Rebirth, and there was a character that everyone in chat was losing their mind for, and I was like, I don't know who that is. And like, oh, that's a character from Crisis Core. And I was like, I have to learn about other games in order to play this? And they're like, yup. And I was like, all right, I'm not getting Kingdom Hearted. So I went and I played everything. And even having played everything, there were still 2 or 3 characters. I was like, who the hell's that? It was bonkers.
Wow.
But I enjoyed it. I loved it. All I'll say is it's a trilogy. And in my mind, it's there in the exact same place as the Matrix trilogy, where the first movie, I was like, all right. And the second movie, I was like, I don't know what the hell has happened, but the third movie could be awesome. This could be really good. This could be crazy. And I remember talking with friends and theory crafting about how is Agent Smith in the outside, but maybe there's a Matrix in a Matrix, dude. Oh my God, it's all fake. And no, he was like Jesus or something at the end. It was such a letdown from what it should have been. And that's where the third game's either going to be amazing or it's going to be a letdown. And we have to wait 4 or 5 years to find out. So, ding. Gotcha. That's where we're at.
Damn.
It has lorded over the edges of my pop culture awareness for such a long part of my life that when Rebirth came out, and now enjoying 14 so much, I'm just like, shit, I think I finally want to take the plunge into 7. Because my experience with it is osmosis. I know the rough beats of 7, and I've seen Advent Children. I don't remember it at all, and that's it. And whatever's in Kingdom Hearts. I know Sephiroth is a mother effer in Kingdom Hearts 2.
the one thing that I think it was Nomura, someone said that all of it still leads to Advent Children. So you know for a fact Advent Children is the end point of the story they're trying to tell. And so knowing that, I'm like, all right, so what story are they trying to tell? Because I don't want to like hint at what Remake and Rebirth is. It's that kind of thing where when you experience it, you'll be like, I have so many thoughts right now. And you'll be like, boop, 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 boop. Kyle, I know it's 3 a.m., but I know you have a baby and I know you're up anyway. Anyway, so I was playing Rebirth and I have some thought. Like, that's what will happen.
Okay. You sold me. Consider me sold. I was already sold. You sold me more. So, Kyle, we are actually going to speed through. We are actually going to speed through the Final Fantasy XIV patches because Jesse has done such a good job selling Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, I see. Oh,
yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. I did have a question though about, speaking of 14, once you completed Xenos fight, there is like a fake out, and then you meet all the different characters and they all say goodbye, and then you have another like, even though I sent a letter saying the Scions were over, actually, what is all going on? We had vacations together. Okay, see you all a little bit. Like, what was your vibe for that ending? And then post-credit scene.
Okay. So there was the room where we talked for a very long time to a lot of people.
The Rising Stones.
Yes.
Yep.
And that was nice. You know, I like that Estinian. You stare at him for a while, and he's basically like, hey, there might be a cool fate outside of the Tower of Babel. You might want to check it out.
I mean, like, there's also basically it's like a goodbye to all the characters, even the like Hori Boulder. I want to have sex with that man character. Like that, you know, they're all
naturally.
They're all there. And I think it's really good. But I'm curious, you know, for me, it was fun to go through. But I think I'm on the same page as you where I was just so emotionally exhausted from the previous, like, however many hours I streamed, that having to read stuff, I was like, all right, so
I
this character wants.
I mean, my only note is maybe it should be like a yellow quest, like, but just like a highly telegraphed yellow quest. Like, you should really do this, but I kind of feel like post credits they should just windmill slam it, let it just breathe, because that's how I was feeling after. I love an epilogue, I absolutely do, but I usually come back to an epilogue in a book like days later.
I think it was in the theming. There was an energy of what are you even doing here? You need rest, but it wasn't as strong as some of the like, you get some damn rest like this game has had in the past, because they knew the vast majority of people would want to see the end of this quest. And as a streamer, you are locked in, and we're going to do like schedule a stream and be like, hey, everybody, we're reading the final quest. But I think naturally, I probably would have been like, whoa, snack time. First up, let me just go like gather myself here. But it's a weird experience because everyone's like, you can't predict patch content. It goes places you won't even imagine. But what I imagine here is like, however many teams we made, one per patch. We go hang out with Kryl and Graha for 6.1.
Yeah, some of them paired up. The twins paired up. Kryl and Graha paired up. Estinian's off on his own thing. Thancred's off on his own thing.
No, he's off with Orianche.
That's right.
He has like I'll be running around with that crazy fortune teller. Which you're like, what? Oh, right. He does occasionally like lift a card and like look peek at it. Even though maybe that's his new thing. Like he's like, I'm done being mysterious. I am now fortune teller.
With Y'shtola, that's 5, right? Because you got Thancred Orianche, that's 1. Mm-hmm. Twins, that's 2. Kryl and Graha, that's 3. Orianche is 4, and then Y'shtola is 5. So that's 5 patches. So
that seems
I love
like
when things are tidy, so I tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
I know. So many people have hinted at the gods, so I have a feeling it has something to do with that.
I mean, Emmett was like, me, sign flat. Have you seen all the gods, by the way?
Emmett mentioned like 40 things. If people behave themselves in the comments, I probably wouldn't have zeroed in on that. But yeah, he's even Jesse's smiling. Even Jesse's poker face is breaking.
I mean, it's completely apt that Emmett straight up dumps stuff on you. He's like, oh yeah, here's everything that you ever said on every forum that you wanted to see ever. Enjoy, nerds. And you're like, yeah, I do want to see those things. And yeah, will we? When will we? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, some of it are direct things that have mentioned that's coming in Dawn Trail. I'm like, hey, I know that. But yeah, it was such a scattershot that it left to my own devices. I'm not sure I would have known which thing to zero in on first, like other than order of things. But yeah, I really don't know. I really don't know where things are going from here.
It does open up stuff. And this is sort of like theory crafting in general. Like, this is a Jesse has no answers kind of vibe, where Emmett dumps a bunch of stuff that's like, hey, you know, the new world, y'all. And we're like, yeah, we're going to the new world. We've seen the trailer. It makes me now think about the extent or limitations of the ancients or Asians and like where they controlled and what they did, or the Alligans were like, oh yeah, no, we were in Meracidia doing stuff and we did all this stuff. And it's like, okay, but what's the deal with the new world? And people were just like, let them do their thing. I have so many questions about where Dawn Trail's going that I want to experience new things, but also I'm like, well, I gotta have answers about all that other stuff. But that might mean retreading old content where I'm like, well, aren't we done with the Asians? Do I need more Asians or Alligans? I'm so curious where they're going with this whole thing.
Sorry,
go for it.
I was going to say, with the Asians is why I wanted to interject, is like, I want just enough of a break that I kind of naturally stop thinking about them, and they reintroduce something in like the second or third expansion in this new arc that kind of reminds you, like, oh, yeah, by the way, in case you forgot, you're still born of Asian, and some like I just know that I'm deep enough in it now that in 5 years down the road, I'm playing whatever the new MSQ is and getting to some old relic, and it's just echo hits, and you see Emmett or Hitler or any of this cast, or even a new Asian, if there's like a revelation that some new character that's on the scene is some Asian we've never contended with before. I know that would just like dump fuel on the fire that I now possess for this game. But I want to miss them first. I hope in Dawn Trail we don't just jump right back in bed with new Asian plots.
Yeah, and I feel like that's probably the case, but I'm also curious. I feel like a period is a great place to have new people jump in. Obviously, that's not the case, because in order to even get here, you have to do the other stuff. But if you're a person who pays for a skip, and the skip is to Dawn Trail, then I guess I just don't know. I don't know how, as a company, it's the same thing when you look at what they do with World of Warcraft, where it's like you can start anywhere. You can pick which path you want to take, which for players trying to catch up to Endgame is phenomenal. And I actually really appreciate the way WoW escalates getting through the story. But it means that everyone has a disjointed. There's no real cohesive overall story. In a game like,
it's good gameplay that kind of, as an MMO, respects your time and your grind to get to max level, but it does not respect the story. But that's also just WoW. Like, what are they going to make you do raids? Almost every story in WoW ends in a raid, which was group content, and they're just not set up for that. 14 is like, oh, you want to know what's going on? Yeah, okay, start with A Realm Reborn and go through it and do it. That's got to be... I still am convinced that's tough. That's like the toughest thing. It's a hard ask. But I clearly stand corrected by the Xbox players who are enjoying themselves. So what the hell do I know? Yeah, I mean, it is, to me, objectively, like the most uninteresting one. But I still had a good enough time. I will say I was pretty bored in the early stages, but we weren't making like video. We hadn't cracked the seal on a video yet. So I was going through it very slowly. I was treating it like a book that I was interested in, but maybe not sold on yet. So I was just kind of slowly just chipping away in a really like kind of low stakes environment. I keep doing book analogies because,
well, it's a lot of reading.
Yeah. I probably would have like post good book depression right now if we didn't have this community where we kind of just get to keep celebrating the story.
Well, and so much to look forward to, like Dungeons Back in Time. Are a huge part.
Speaking of, speaking of, my dear sweet boy, what was your vibe on that?
And yet,
Something stirs. Yes. Steeped in darkness, deep as starless night. The beast hungers. Alas, I dare not investigate in earnest before the coming of my guiding star, as he foretold. We shall descend to the depths, you and I, to confront the dread beast Pandemonium. Oh, the sights we shall see. The sights we shall see.
I did wake up early today before I took a shower and watch that last cutscene just to be like, what do they think? Where do they think this is going? And you had a lot of like, can we go into the past? What is this? I would love to know what the two of you think is coming for you in that storyline. Like, what is that?
Oh, I haven't really thought about it, but now that you ask.
I have thought about it.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Here's what I want it to be. So I'm going to preface this. This is what I think it could be. What I want it to be is some of my favorite dungeons in this entire game have been every time we go to an ancient a niter. I love their little storehouses and their little test chambers where they either keep their designs or they make their designs and things don't go according to plan. I hope this is like a jail for the designs that were just what is wrong with you? Like, I just hope
too many sharks.
It's a niter's just cranked up to 11. Like, this is just the worst the ancients came up with, and shit's just going bad. Why we have to go into past? How they're going to justify it story wise? Like, why would we care? It's in the past.
Oh, there's clearly there. Yeah, we can clearly.
It sorted itself out.
Yeah, we can clearly travel there. And if the world wasn't destroyed by totally awesome beasts that they put in jail, it means we killed them in the past. So it all works out. It's clean, you know? Got to get rid of them.
Yeah, just based like I don't know, like it's back to Kyle's ingredients section. I'm working with what I know, and obviously what seemed important to me. There's so many other little tidbits around Elpis, and we barely scratched the surface of the side quests out there, which the few we did were actually very, very interesting. But yeah, to me it's like, well, what can I go off of that? I don't know why it's Elidibus, but it sure seems to be Elidibus, and something hungers. Well, what would a threat even be in Elpis other than the creation of an ancient? Unless it's directly tied in with the final days, which I guess technically it could also be the case. But Elpis sure looked like it was just doing just fine. It looked like a nice, sunny, breezy day.
But we know he saw us there, so he could call us up through the channel of himself and get an Asm involved, even though we're off punching volcanoes.
But he's dead.
Yeah, no, I'm saying his past self could, because if your past self contacted you, you'd be the best person to talk to if you were your past self, right? I mean, you might think they're a little shit because you grew up and you want to tell them more, but you're dead in the future, so don't worry about it.
Fair. Yeah, the why of it, specifically, why would we return to Elpis from a canon like story standpoint? I have no idea. That's where I'm really lost on it. Obviously, I know from a gameplay standpoint, you can go there and grind and do side quests and do fates and all that kind of stuff. But I'm curious the story implication. Like, why would we subject ourselves to that?
Well, if we're talking getting convinced of scheduling here with Jesse Cox a little bit, do you think doing it patch by patch is right again? Like, make sure that dungeon that came out during the 0.1 is done or the raid that came out in 0.1 is done in the 0.1 zone. And
actually, yeah, I'd love to ask you, like, do you think we should break up doing the raid to wait until we also get to that patch to do it?
I think chat will agree with me on this. The answer is yes, but I think it's also because you may be forced to do some of that.
Oh, interesting.
There are, I seem to recall that at least one of the patches makes you go through the story of the patch to even do some stuff.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But that may be the raid, not the trials. I do not remember. But I feel like there's some stuff that you have to do in order to unlock some things. But I'm thinking of the Alliance raid. But whatever the case may be, I would say do it patch by patch, just because the flow, it's boy, every time I say flow, I just like.
And how as time float on those waters.
That's the song. But I feel like because 0.1 to 0.5 it's contained, that doing it all just in a row in the patches is probably the smartest way to do it. But I would say in your spare time before you stream, or you could stream it, whatever, go back and just do all the Elpis quests.
We've done a good chunk. We've got a couple more to go, but
there's a lot of quests in Elpis.
I mean, I
think we did 2 or 3 arcs in total.
Yeah,
there's a reason. Just gonna say that. Go back, just do them. Just go do those.
I mean, certainly the main one we got to doing the ones we did was Hermes is a bit of a dick. They actually did have some decent funeral rites, and he was kind of, getting pissed for the wrong reasons in some regards. And they made that clear in some of those yellow quests. But investigate further. We have a list. We have a list that we haven't tackled.
I prefer thinking of Hermes as irresponsible with his job.
Peer review, indeed.
Yeah, I would say go back to Elpis, and then I would say just enjoy the ride for what is left of this. And go back and do all of Hildebrand if you haven't. Like, just make a stream. Go do all of it.
We started the Realm Reborn one, and our voices were like dead the next day. So people keep asking us, and we're like, listen, we had a good time. Physically, it's hard to be that goofy that long.
I'm sure you know this, and if you don't, I'm just going to spoil it anyway. In order to get the best weapons in the game, you must do Hildebrand.
I've heard this.
So do it. Just get it over with. Even if it's like the most stressful thing in the world, do it. Mostly also because the Hildebrand quests in this expansion are like, here's normal Hildebrand, and here's the ones in this expansion. It's absolutely the craziest thing. It's like me discussing Fast and Furious 10. It's nonsense. It is so out. I can't even describe it to you in a way that would make sense. But you get awesome weapons doing it. So like
that you're trying.
Yeah.
It's the responsible thing to do.
Yes. You've got a lot to do, and thankfully none of it's grindy, because that would 100% impact any hope you have of doing Dawn Trail in a reasonable amount of time, because thankfully you have time to just like soak it in.
Okay. Sick.
Yeah.
Rad. Well, before we wrap up, do you have any other thoughts you're just dying to get out?
Do you have any other thoughts you're dying to get out? I'm doing great. I got to watch the two of you go through an ending and hit every kind of possible just beat I wanted. It was lovely. It was a great moment for me. Chat was there. You had so many people watching yesterday. It was great. It was great. It was a great moment.
I agree.
Biggest stream ever for us. And there were multiple points we were playing Endwalker, and we're like, we don't concern ourselves with numbers that much. We're actually, at terms of we're weirdly prouder of when we have a good amount of people watching on like an extreme night or something, because it's like our core community, hell yeah, it's like it's healthy, it's sustainable. Let's freaking do this. Well, there were a couple times in Endwalker where we're like, I was kind of expecting to have more concurrence than our Shadowbringers finale stream by now, but it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And so I was really buying into the most people prefer Shadowbringers over Endwalker hype, just based on our own anecdotal evidence. And then last night happened, and I was like, okay, all right, never mind. My mom called me this morning to check in. She's like, how you doing, honey? What's new? I'm like, I had a normal week, except for biggest stream of my whole goddamn life last night. I'm feeling very emotional about it. And I don't really know how to explain it to you, because I tried to explain to her why a cat mom on another planet made me cry because it made me think of her, and I realized it was complete nonsense coming out of my mouth. And I was like, I'm trying to tell my mother that she means a lot to me, and that this fictional scene reminded me of when I moved to California and she was seeing me off.
Good for you for trying.
I tried my damnedest. But you know, there's this thing about Final Fantasy XIV. You kind of have to experience it to understand it. So yeah, that was interesting. I was just looking forward to this because I was like, oh, sweet. Like I just want to geek out with Kyle and Jesse. But like overall, I'm just like stoked it was good. Like everyone wants, like I've already been asked by a few people like, oh, so which is the character you prefer, Shadowbringers or Endwalker? I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm probably leaning Shadowbringers like a little bit, but I'm splitting hairs. Like to me, like I really like Emmett, and I particularly like villain Emmett, and you don't have that in Endwalker. And it's a little, to me, I think it's a little more focused, but I really want to think about this. I want to think about why, and you can't. Anyone who's watched our channel probably won't surprise you. We actually like to think about why things make us feel the way that we really feel.
That's why we're not recording a video today. Like that is just, it is a lot to process. I mean, this morning I had to describe what a frenemy was to my son, 4 years old. He wakes up, he's like, how was it, Dad? How was your show last night? And I was like, dude, it was great. I had this awesome scene with my frenemy. What's a frenemy, Dad? Well, it's like, have you seen, no?
No, I know everything you've seen because I've literally been here for your whole life.
I've been the one to show you it, yes.
No, you haven't. Never mind. It's a non-starter. That's adorable.
It was good. It was all the right ingredients cooked in the right order.
Yeah, like I love having conversations like this because it's like I never mean it like because I say I prefer one over the other that I don't like the thing that I'm ranking lower. It's like Lord of the Rings, like Fellowship's my favorite, but it's honestly probably go in descending order. I love Fellowship. Two Towers is probably my second favorite. Return of the King is probably my least favorite, but I love them all. Like they're all freaking fantastic. Return of the King is such a good and all-encompassing ending that makes me feel like, oh, thank God, I can actually put this down and I can walk away feeling satisfied. And that's how I feel about Endwalker. I'm like, where there are other points that maybe were just like a slightly more like personal high for me, just in terms of all the little personal idiosyncrasies that I contain that I want for my fiction. Yes. But this is also, it's just so nice when landings get stuck. There's a few television shows I feel that way about. There's probably even less movie franchises I feel that way about. But it's just good. And it's funny because if I try, I know I'm going to go forward. And if I try and describe Endwalker 21, it's going to sound like this scattershot, like it's all over. It's going to just sound bananas. But in the end, I thought I was like, oh, thank God, this is actually fairly straightforward. It's their own version of it, but it's a really solid traditional like hero's journey end. And they went about it in their own way, and it was really true to that massive ensemble cast of characters. And I'm just very pleased with it. I'm very, very pleased with it.
Wait, wrong way. And you?
Well, I had an excellent time.
Cool.
Yeah. No, I am still in the depths of recovery. I continue to look through this footage and just go, oh my God. I just pulled up the Xenos dinner scene. I'm like, oh my God, that did happen. It is, while we did take a long time with it, there was also a lot of time spent doing it. And, Garrett's had his moment last night. Said it again today. Certainly, I wouldn't be here in Florida if it wasn't for the journey we went on with the channel and the community. So I'm very excited to continue. But is that what you're asking?
I mean, I'm just asking how you boys is doing. That's all. I just want to know what's going on with you, because it's an emotional roller coaster. I think, especially if it becomes something attached to like your life and more than just escapism. It's like I'm doing this is like what I do now. Like, that's overwhelming. It's an overwhelming feeling. And then to feel appreciated for that feels good. Feels real good.
Yes, it does. We had a moment like a week ago. Sometimes we actually do have meetings, despite how bonkers our theories are. And we were like looking at the calendar. I was like, Kyle, I was like, there's just no way. There's no way we can follow this marathon of streams and then also guest podcasts with a well thought out final MSQ video. Like, we just got to give ourselves some time to breathe and soak this in and enjoy the moment. So yeah, no one's really asked, by the way, but in case anyone's wondering when the proper Endwalker MSQ video is going to release for the finale, it's going to be a little while. We probably have at least a day of footage organization before we even start doing our outline on how we want to try to start to chip away at this.
And are you going to go back and I assume play the final dungeon with NPCs?
Yeah.
And do all that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's another thing I've been eating crow on, because the whole time people are like, run over the solo duty. And I like looked up the lines. I'm like, there's like 3 character lines that maybe are kind of interesting. I'm not going to read it all.
Also, it's all a trap. Do not listen to them. I decided to do all Endwalker with the characters, and in the Hydaelyn fight, they like know where to move. And the Hydaelyn fight, they all stood there and took the waves of light, and I was like, you're the healer, bro. What are you doing?
That's when I finally did it, though. I started with Catesis, and then we did the Hydaelyn fight, and I think that is rad. I think that is actually just from if you get that invested in the story and the characters by that point, it does feel like the canon way that would go down, and so it is just kind of cool to. From a visual standpoint and a story standpoint, experience. So that's where I've been kind of eating crow on that a little bit. Because I'm like, okay. From Catesis forward, I agree with the people in the comments who were like, you should do this. Before that, I really think it's your own personal decision. I didn't think there was anything that revelatory in anything I read from the duty supports before that.
Well, and honestly, I like if I woke up today, like it is a betrayal of the raw emotion and exhaustion I'm feeling today from that journey to analyze it. So I will say it's good with 0 caveats to that. What I want to do? Oh yeah, I want to go line up the Hydaelyn quotes with the sacrifices they made and see how those compare. Because how I remember it right now is that is way richer than what even Hydaelyn had to say. It was way deeper. It exposed weaknesses that the Scions didn't know they had, and they had to apply themselves and put themselves in the right cubby. I want to line up all the planets. Medion going on about dead, dying civilizations with Omega in the background, but also, like they gave me a freaking magnet at FanFest of a happy little submarine seal, and his face had melted off. I'm like, why would you do this?
Why? Exactly, dude. When I got that keychain, I'm like, I don't know what the hell this thing is, but it's adorable. And then when you get to that dungeon, you're just like, this is one of the darker things I've seen in a game, and.
I forgot. I forgot to tell you. When you have time, do the crafter quests. You don't have to do it for the last things, but for Endwalker,
all of them,
do the 3 beast tribes. And I specifically do I think it's gathering. I think
a lot of people in chat are saying gatherer.
The gatherer tribe, I have never done something that had no purpose other than like level up your crafting that made me feel so many emotions. And all I'm going to say, and I'm just going to be like, invest the time in it. The story happens, every so many turn-ins, but when it happens, they were just like, you thought we were done, you fools. It is. Yeah.
I mean, there's an element of that just coming out last night too. Like, would I get on here guns ablazing and be like, where's R involved? Somewhere. The game's not dumb. He's in the role quests. He's gathering. Like there's somewhere that's something I'm gonna come up with today and be like, hey, now wait a minute. Someone's gonna be like, it's right there. Just gotta just get the frick in there and do your role quests. And That's a huge one too.
Oh, you haven't done role quest stuff.
No.
That's a whole other. Another one of those level up every single role so you can do all of them for reasons that don't matter.
Because we did them before we finished Shadowbringers and Shadowbringers, because people said it kind of flows better if you do it that way. I don't think anyone made a good faith argument for us pausing to do role quests before completing our Endwalker.
There's like a few moments where it feels like, oh, this would take place during this time period of the Endwalker story. But yeah, it's its own thing.
I like the role quests in Shadowbringers. They vary all over the place in terms of some I thought were great, and others I'm like, it's fine. It's a thing. But
yeah.
There's
the best part is all those things, the role quests, the beast tribes. I could sit here and worry about spoiling it. There's nothing I can say. It's so unexpected in like the best way possible that I will just say experience it. You don't even need to stream it. Honestly, I didn't. And I was just like, by the end, like, I'm so glad I did those things. And just enjoy. That's what I'll say.
I think the only piece of narrative I haven't streamed was the Final Fantasy XV event. That was 2 weeks ago. I think it's the only narrative piece of content I have not played live, other than all of our Realm Reborn and most of Heavensward. Because we just didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, same. I didn't start doing any sort of stream or anything till sometime in Heavensward. Because I think maybe the same as you two, I didn't know where this was going. I was like through a Realm Reborn, I was like, it's all right. It's COVID, so I'm bored, so like I'll play it.
I was straight up hate playing it. I was like, I'm so sick of people being like, play it. You don't like Shadowlands? Play this. It's good. And I'm like, there's load walls. Why are there load walls? This is a game made post 2010. Why are there load walls? And I just, I was just like, I don't mind tab targeting, but I'm like, I've played enough games with tab targeting. And then, I don't know, somewhere between Keeper of the Lake and Moonbreeda, I was like, starting to care.
Yep.
So.
Enjoy. That's the advice.
Play Final Fantasy XIV, people.
Do it all.
If somehow you listen to this, which shame on you, you spoiled the shit out of yourself, and you haven't taken the plunge, you should do so. Yeah,
and make sure to watch MSQ&A. If you aren't aware, it's a thing that happens, and if you aren't watching it right now, make sure to watch. Yeah. Also, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe. And give it a like, because you aren't giving enough likes. Also, remember, play Final Fantasy XIV.
Now do it for yourself, Jesse.
For you.
Where can you be found?
Just literally Jesse Cox everywhere on the internet. I do way too much, and I am consistently doing more than I probably should. So I'm here to take up all of your time. That's what I'm here for. But I just enjoy this tremendously. Sitting here talking with you guys, I could waste your time all day. You have no clue.
It's never waste time.
Just waste your time.
It is.
I could
mutual.
Don't say that. I'll show up and be like, so we're gonna do these Hildebrand quests. What are we doing? We're gonna get weird with it?
If you want to tap in and help with the voices, be my guest.
Oh my God. I have Hildebrand voices. You have my Godbert sounds like Colonel Sanders. It is
nice.
A whole thing. I do a whole thing. It is my supreme joy to do those.
We have massive crossover with your audience, and we still get crap for judging characters based on the cover when we do our voices. What the hell? What's going on between you and Preach and the shared fandom? Why do people get so mad at our silly voices?
My voice, oh my God, my Nashu voice is like, oh, Ada Hildebrand, let's go on an adventure. That's the voice.
Nice.
And people are like, yeah, that's good. What?
Keep it up.
Good God. Fan-freaking-tastic. I'm going to selfishly include one question that I pulled from our Discord because selfishly, I just really want the answer to this. Traxio wanted to ask you, what game would you like to see the Grinding Gear boys cover next? Outside of Final Fantasy XIV.
Here's the thing. I know I like watching the two of you theorycraft and get deep in it. But I don't know what your patience is for this, because you mentioned it at the beginning. And I have to say, if you have the patience and the time, go play Control. Go play Control.
I recently beat it.
Okay, never mind. Screw that. F Control. You beat it. We're done.
But Kyle
get in the Remedyverse.
And
Alan Wake 2. If you play Alan Wake 2, oh my God. Anyway, that's suggestion number 1. Suggestion number 2, for major theory crafting, play through the Nearverse.
Oh God.
Oh wow.
Oh, you're one of those.
Oh wow.
I through Nier.
This triggers a fallacy in my brain, because I know how many endings there are. I'm like, how can you theory craft about a game with this many endings?
Don't start with Nier Automata. Start with Nier Gestalt. It is the updated 2010 version of the first Nier game. And I just want you to experience it, because it does not have the like 8 billion endings of Nier Automata. Ignore that. Focus on Gestalt. You will be like, what? No, Replicant. Replicant? Whatever it is.
Both exist.
Gestalt was the original. Replicant is the remake of Gestalt. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. Just go play the first one. And it'll get in your head. It is a game designed to be like a full Kyle, you would love it. You would love it.
Okay.
Okay. Here's all I can't even describe it to you. Everything in it is not what it seems. And I say this by saying that one of the characters played by, oh my goodness, the from Critical Role, help me out, chat. She is
Laura Bailey.
Laura Bailey.
Hey.
Plays Liam O'Brien's in it too, but Laura Bailey plays a character who is like wearing lingerie the entire time, and it seems very bizarre and extremely weird. And when I say that for some insane reason it has a payoff that makes full sense, I cannot explain to you how shocked I was, because I was like, this is just some, it's a character in lingerie who swears the entire game. This clearly, like,
I like
do
Kill
not
la Kill.
spoil this. Chat, do not spoil this at all for them. It is a genuinely insane game that is it's an event that every moment to moment is the only thing that sucks about it is it's based off the 2010 version, which I think is Gestalt. And the side quests are like very 2010 side quests. So it's like, I need 40 pieces of mutton. So go just don't do that. Just ignore that, right? But if you want to do it, go ahead. But the side quests are so 100. The story is genuinely incredible. And then if you like it enough that you want to jump into Automata and try to get endings A through F or whatever the hell they are, then do that. But play the original. It's much shorter. It's something that will, like, you know, get you juiced up for something bigger.
Okay.
It's neat.
Okay.
I dig it. All right, rad. Thanks for the answer. And tracks.
Oh, and the music is tight. It's so good. Music is great.
Oh, I was thinking you're a big music. You're big in the vinyl and stuff too, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, I love just all music things in general. It's a big part of just why I like games, and why I also appreciate great music additions to media. My favorite video on the internet is the one where it's the final scene of Star Wars without music, and it's just like them getting the awards, but there's like a dude like. And she's like, here you go, and it's just like you can hear the feet as they walk down the hall, and you realize how insane that scene is without music. It's a great video. No.
I know the exact one you're talking about.
I've seen it.
Oh, dear word. Well, thanks again for coming by, Jesse. I'm sure this isn't the last we'll see of you.
Can't wait to be back for the Near Replicant podcast.
We hope you come back to talk about some Remedy games if and when Kyle ever beats Control.
Yo, beat Control. I will talk all day about that entire franchise. They're so good at weaving a tale.
I think it's a new top 3 for me. I loved it. I absolutely adore that game. Yep. Well, thank you again, everybody. This is the inaugural voyage of the rebranded MSQ&A. That's what these types of episodes, that's the banner they will be flying under. If you're watching on YouTube, nothing changes for you. Nothing changes for you at all, except we might be unlisting this and re-releasing it next week with some B-roll and some editing. That's the only thing that might change. It'll be, it's if you really want to watch it right now, you know where the playlists are to find that unlisted stuff. You know the Grinding Gear cheat codes. Everybody knows the Grinding Gear cheat codes. But yeah, if you're listening to this on podcast, please, if you haven't already, if you're just like stream it, please subscribe. Please subscribe and drop us a 5-star review. That helps us out a ton. It's a new show. It's a new feed. Getting a bunch of subs when it's new, that just gets it out there. So help us get out there and, bring the good word that is Jesse Cox's appreciation of Fast and the Furious 10 out into the universe.
Dude, FF. Do I just like all the... It's because it's FF? Is that why I like it?
Yeah.
Am I basic?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
At the end of the day, it's okay.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
It's called knowing what you like. Oh, Fatal Frame. Good question. Yeah, Fatal Frame.
I love Fatal Frame.
Oh, yeah.
And I love... Oh, yeah, I love Final Fight. I love the Foo Fighters. Oh, no.
Frog Fractions? How do you feel about
I love Frog Fractions. Oh, no. Yeah, basic. That's me.
Do you use Firefox as a browser?
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
What am I? What is even real? Oh, my God.
Well, Franz Ferdinand, the band, how did that make you feel?
Take me out. Boo, 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 boo. Boo, 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 boo. No.
Thank you all for listening. We want to thank our badass patrons for supporting us on Patreon. You can support everything Kyle and I are making together by going to supportourbromance.com. That will take you directly to our Patreon and to our most recent patrons, who we thank at the end of every podcast we produce. This week, we want to thank Silver Ronan, Corey Losey, Anne-Marie Bossart, Lang and Ath, Ryan Murphy, Patricia Stern, Val Carone, Akasha, I see what you did there, and Dustin Barton. And of course, there's a special level we thank each and every time we do one of these, and that's our legendary level backers. So if you want to get thanked at the end of every video and every podcast that we make, check out that legendary level tier. Huge thanks to Sean B, Cheesy Bob, Mike R, Stephen J, Das, Chris K, Lost Mythics, Wayward E, Zervon, Compsite Jedi, Darkman, Pothy, Bluzzy Von, Snugglegore, Zach Zock, Avane, Shinny Geo, Nicholas C, Coral, Slyn, Jerry T, Sean and Jen in conjunction, Janet Y, and Vernacular Ham. Thank you all so much. Kyle and I use Doghouse Systems gaming PC, so check out doghousesystems.com when you need your next gaming PC. And if you use the code BROMANCE, you'll support us in the process, and you'll get upgraded to a free 2 terabyte NVMe SSD in the process. You can follow us on Twitter at Garrett Art and at Kyle Ferguson, and we have a joint account at Garrett and Kyle. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Until next time, GG.
Take care.